At 04:17 hours on April 14, 1945, Private First Class Harold Eugene Wilson crouches behind a coral outcrop on the southern approaches of Battle of Okinawa. The night is not fully gone. It clings to the ground in damp layers, heavy and close, the kind that settles into wool uniforms and never quite leaves. The temperature hovers at 71 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity pushing 88%, enough to turn every breath into warm resistance. Rain fell earlier, light but steady, and now the coral dust beneath Wilson's boots has become a pale paste that sticks to leather and skin alike. Wilson does not move. In his hands is a rifle that does not officially exist. Once it was an M1903 Springfield, regulation length, walnut stock unmarred. Now the barrel has been cut down to 18.5 inches, the crown uneven where a hacksaw bit and skipped. A crude muzzle brake welded from salvaged aircraft aluminum juts forward at an awkward angle. The iron sights have been filed by hand, notched deeper for close-range shooting. The rifle weighs 8.9 pounds, nearly a pound lighter than standard, and every ounce of that weight presses into Wilson's palms. Other Marines laughed when they saw it. One corporal called it a butchered deer rifle. An officer, tired, overworked, dismissive, had said, "That thing'll blow your shoulder apart before it hits a Jap." Wilson said nothing then, he says nothing now. 27 Japanese infantrymen are moving downslope toward his position. They are spread across a 40-yard frontage, advancing in short bursts, boots scraping limestone, bodies kept low. 2 light machine gun positions sit farther back inside reinforced cave mouths, barrels already oriented downslope. The Japanese know this ground. They have been digging into it for weeks, carving murder holes into coral, turning the island into a weapon. Wilson is alone, his platoon pulled back at 3:52 hours, ordered to regroup after taking casualties they could not replace. Wilson volunteered, or perhaps simply failed to retreat fast enough. The nearest friendly line is 312 yards to the rear, separated by open ground already zeroed by enemy fire. There is no radio, no flare, no artillery scheduled for another 90 minutes. He checks his ammunition by touch alone. 23 rounds of .30-06 remain in his bandolier. One improvised fragmentation charge sits heavy in his pocket, TNT wrapped in cloth, fuse measured and cut by guesswork. No grenades, no second chances. The smell is what he notices first. Wet coral has a chalky tang that coats the tongue. Beneath it lies old cordite, embedded in his uniform from days of firing. Rotting vegetation gives off a sweet-sour stench, mixed now with blood, someone else's, dried into the ground. The wind carries it all together, a Pacific cocktail that never leaves the nose once it settles in. He hears them before he sees them clearly. Low voices in Japanese, controlled, close, one cough quickly stifled. The metallic click of a rifle bolt eased forward by hand. At 15 feet, a bayonet blade briefly catches what little moonlight remains, flashing silver before disappearing again. Wilson adjusts his grip. The rifle stock is slick, rainwater, sweat, maybe blood. His left hand tingles, half numb from an old recoil injury that never healed properly. Salt stings a shallow cut along his cheek where coral bit him earlier. His breathing is slow, deliberate, fogging the air just inches from his face. He angles the muzzle downward at 17 degrees, just as he practiced. This is why they mocked the weapon. Standard doctrine favors range, precision, discipline. Wilson learned something else in the weeks leading up to Okinawa. At 20 feet, inside broken terrain and bad light, velocity matters less than control. Shorter barrel. Faster handling, less snagging, less hesitation. A boot crunches coral too close. Wilson's finger takes up slack on the trigger. He feels the sear engage, the final resistance before release. His heart rate is steady now, hovering near 90 beats per minute, lower than it has any right to be. Somewhere behind those advancing shapes is a country that rejected him twice before the war even started. Too thin, too quiet, not soldier material. Somewhere behind them is a bureaucracy that nearly sent him home in 1942 with a handshake and a train ticket. Here, none of that matters. The first Japanese soldier steps fully into view, rifle at low ready, eyes scanning past Wilson's position instead of into it. Wilson exhales, the trigger begins to move. Silence holds for 2 beats. Then the voice returns, calm and measured. In the next 38 minutes, a rejected soldier with a weapon nobody trusted will force the Japanese defenders of Okinawa to change how they fight, whether they survive it or not. Harold Eugene Wilson is born at 5:42 a.m. on February 3, 1919, in a narrow red brick row house on East Ostend Street, South Baltimore, Maryland. The house is 14 feet wide, 2 stories tall, heated by a coal stove that never quite warms the back rooms. From the front stoop, the air always smells of iron, brine, and smoke drifting in from the harbor. His father, Thomas Wilson, works the docks, loading steel plate and rolling drums by hand. On August 11, 1932, when Harold is 13, a snapped cable drops a 16-ton steel slab without warning. Thomas dies before the ambulance reaches the pier. The harbor does not stop moving for it. Harold's mother takes in laundry. She earns 12 cents per shirt, paid weekly, fingers cracked raw by lye soap and winter water. Harold leaves school at 14 not because he wants to, but because shoes cost money and coal costs more. From then on, his education is tactile. He learns the weight of things, the sound metal makes when it's about to fail. How to stand so your back lasts longer than your hands. He does not talk much. Talking does not help you on the docks. In June 1936, at 17, Harold starts as an apprentice metalworker at the Bethlehem Steel Shipyard, Baltimore. His badge number is stamped crooked. His first assignment is cleanup, scrap bins, slag piles, twisted offcuts nobody wants. By his second year, he's allowed near the torches. Oxyacetylene work teaches patience or it teaches pain. Harold learns both. The flame burns at over 600 degrees F, bright enough to leave afterimages burned into the eye. He learns to cut steel by sound, listening for the change in pitch that means the metal is about to give. He files edges smooth in bad light, measuring by thumb width and instinct when rulers aren't around. For 5 full years, from 1936 to 1941, he works 6 days a week. He fixes broken tools others discard, rebuilds hinges from scrap, welds cracks that inspectors miss. His shirts smell permanently of hot iron and sweat. Tiny burns stipple his forearms like freckles. No one calls him gifted. They call him reliable. By 1941, Harold can look at a piece of metal and know how it will behave under stress. He knows how weight shifts when material is removed. Knows how shortening something changes the way it moves in the hand. These are not skills anyone thinks a soldier needs. On December 8, 1941, the radio on Pier 6 crackles with news from Hawaii. Men stop working, someone swears, someone else laughs, sharp and nervous. Harold listens without expression. He tries to enlist 2 days later. Attempt 1, rejected for being 9 pounds underweight. Attempt 2. Rejected for partial hearing loss in the left ear, shipyard noise. On the third attempt, March 3, 1942, manpower needs outweigh paperwork. He is accepted and assigned to the United States Marine Corps, not because he asked, but because they need bodies that can pass a rifle qualification. Paris Island is mud, sweat, and shouting. Drill instructors note his silence. His posture is poor. He is not fast. His rifle scores are average. An evaluation sheet dated May 1942 reads, unremarkable. Lacks aggression. No one notices that his weapon malfunctions less after he cleans it. No one notices that he files burrs off feed lips others ignore. They almost wash him out anyway. By late 1943, Wilson is assigned to the 1st Marine Division, a replacement rifleman cycling into units that need men more than they need perfection. In his squad, the nicknames come quickly. Baltimore. Ghost. What? He speaks when spoken to. He listens more than he should. Officers don't like men they can't read. The first time someone notices him is not in combat. A squadmate cracks a rifle stock during unloading. Wilson asks for permission to fix it. The request is denied. That night he does it anyway, splinting the wood with scrap metal and adhesive meant for tent repair. The rifle holds. Enlisted men nod approval. An officer issues a warning. Unauthorized modifications lead to unauthorized consequences. Wilson accepts the warning without comment. In January 1945, the division ships out from San Diego. The transport reeks of diesel, vomit, and fear. Bunks measure 24 inches wide, stacked 4 high. Men sleep in shifts. Briefings describe Japanese defensive doctrine, caves, tunnels, refusal to retreat. Casualty projections are spoken plainly. Some men stare, some joke. Wilson studies the terrain sketches. He begins modifying his own rifle quietly, shortening, filing, adjusting balance, no permission, no witnesses. By the time they approach Battle of Okinawa, Wilson carries a weapon that no manual accounts for and the knowledge to use it. He does not yet know how many men it will save. By April 1945, the American infantry manual still assumes something the Japanese no longer give: visibility. U.S. rifle doctrine is built around distance, 200 to 500 yards, open fields, tree lines that break under artillery. Suppression comes first, then maneuver. Grenades clear positions. Flamethrowers finish what rifles cannot. The system is orderly, logical, and catastrophically mismatched to Battle of Okinawa. Okinawa does not offer lines, it offers holes. The Japanese have carved the island from the inside out. Coral limestone, soft enough to dig, hard enough to stop shrapnel, has been turned into a three-dimensional defense. Cave entrances average 36 to 48 inches high, many no wider than a man's shoulders. Firing ports are cut upward and downward, creating vertical engagement angles American doctrine never trained for. Engagement distances collapse 10 feet, 20 feet, sometimes less. At those ranges, a 43-inch long-service rifle becomes a liability. Barrels strike rock, stocks snag on roots. Grenade throws bounce back off overhead stone. Flamethrower crews must expose themselves for 6 to 8 seconds, long enough for a single hidden rifleman to kill 2 men. Wilson watches all of this without commentary. He notes how Japanese defenders do not fire immediately. They wait until Americans cluster. They fire from behind, from below, from angles that render training obsolete. Suppression means nothing when the enemy does not show himself. Doctrine demands patience. The caves demand blood. The first man Wilson watches die is Private Joseph R. Miller, age 19, from Toledo, Ohio. Time of contact 09:11 hours, April 11. Miller advances to within 22 feet of a cave entrance, rifle raised, waiting for a flamethrower team to move up. The cave has been silent for 6 minutes. No muzzle flash, no sound. The shot comes from behind. A hidden firing slit 14 inches wide, cut into the coral wall at shoulder height. The round enters Miller's upper back, exits beneath the collarbone. He is dead before he hits the ground. The evacuation log marks him KIA, instantaneous. The second is Corporal Daniel Red Haskins, age 26, from Des Moines, Iowa. Haskins has been in the Corps since Guadalcanal. He knows better than to rush. At 13. 47 hours, he leans out to direct a grenade throw, arm raised, mouth open mid-command. A Type 99 rifle round catches him through the left eye at approximately 30 feet. His body collapses forward, grenade rolling uselessly into the mud. Wilson hears the impact before the body falls, a dull sound like a hammer on wet wood. The third is PFC Manuel Ortega, age 21, from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Ortega carries the flamethrower hose. The tank operator is already down with a leg wound. Ortega steps forward to help reposition. A Japanese round strikes the exposed fuel tank valve. Ignition is immediate. Temperature at ignition exceeds 1000 degrees F. Ortega does not scream for long. The after-action report will list these men as unavoidable losses. Wilson does not agree. The fourth death happens at 16. 2 hours under cloud cover so low it presses sound downward. Private First Class Eddie Kowalski, age 20, from South Chicago. Kowalski shares Wilson's foxhole when they can dig one. He snores softly. He complains about the food. He calls Wilson Baltimore because he can't remember his name. They advance together toward a known cave mouth, already marked on the map, already shelled. Kowalski is first in line, rifle raised, bayonet fixed. The shot comes from beneath. A secondary firing port, cut into the ground at ankle height, angled upward at 23 degrees. The round enters Kowalski's thigh, severs the femoral artery. He goes down hard, mud splashing. Wilson reaches him in 4 seconds. Blood is everywhere, bright, pulsing. Wilson presses down with both hands. He smells iron and wet earth. Kowalski's breathing turns ragged, then thin. He tries to speak. No words come out. Time from impact to death, less than 90 seconds. Wilson sits with the body until the firing stops. Something settles in him then. Not anger, not grief. Calculation, this keeps happening because nothing changes. Wilson raises the issue the next morning, first to the platoon lieutenant. He explains briefly, carefully, that standard rifle length is a problem in confined terrain. That engagement distances are too short, that weapons need to be shorter, faster, easier to control. The lieutenant listens, arms crossed. That rifle you've been carrying, he says, is it modified? Yes, sir. Unauthorized. Yes, sir. The lieutenant exhales slowly. You put this in writing, I'll send it up, but if that thing injures you or someone else, it's on you. Wilson submits the request. Measurements, rationale, observations, it comes back unsigned. Second attempt goes to the company gunnery sergeant. The answer is more direct. Regulations exist for a reason, the gunnery sergeant says. You think you know better than the Corps. Wilson does not answer. Stop cutting up government property. End of discussion. That night Wilson finishes the work. He remeasures the barrel, files the crown smoother, adjusts the sight alignment by fractions of a degree. He selects ammunition deliberately, no tracers, reduced muzzle flash. He knows the risks, confiscation, court-martial, or death. He also knows what happens if nothing changes. Men keep dying at 10 feet. So Wilson decides not to be right, not to be recognized, but to be useful. Tomorrow he will carry a weapon the manual never approved, and when the caves open their mouths again, he will step close enough to look inside. The work begins at 22:41 hours on April 13, 1945, beneath a poncho stretched low between two tent stakes, less than 600 yards behind the forward line on southern Okinawa, part of the wider Battle of Okinawa. There is no light except a hooded flashlight buried under a helmet, its beam throttled down with tape until it is little more than a yellow smear. Wilson works kneeling, boots sunk into damp coral grit. The ground leaches heat from his knees, the air smells of mildew, oil, and old smoke. He strips the rifle without ceremony. The M1903 Springfield lies across two sandbags, action open, bolt removed. He measures the barrel twice using a strip of engineer's tape scavenged weeks earlier. 18.5 inches from the bolt face, no more, no less. He marks the cut with the tip of a bayonet. The hacksaw blade is dull. It chatters against steel, sending vibrations up his arms. He keeps pressure steady, letting the teeth bite at their own pace. The cut takes 9 full minutes. When the barrel finally gives, the sound is soft, a tired metallic sigh rather than a snap. Wilson files the crown by hand, slow circles, even pressure. He knows uneven edges will scatter rounds unpredictably at short range. He checks the symmetry by feel more than sight, running a thumb around the muzzle until it comes back smooth. The muzzle brake comes next, aircraft scrap aluminum alloy cut and shaped earlier in pieces. He aligns it carefully, checking bore clearance with a cleaning rod. The weld is ugly but functional. Sparks flare briefly, bright enough to make him blink hard even through half-closed eyes. The smell of hot metal blooms, sharp and familiar like the shipyard all over again. He files the front sight lower, notches the rear deeper. He wants a 25-foot, not the regulation 100 yards. This rifle is not meant for distance. By 18 hours, the weapon is complete. It weighs 8-9 pounds, overall length 38.2 inches. Shorter, quicker, dangerous in untrained hands. Wilson wipes it down with an oil rag and waits for dawn. Testing begins at 6 hours in a shallow abandoned trench 50 yards off a supply track. Wilson drives bayonet points into the coral wall to mark distances, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. He loads 5 rounds. The first shot at 10 feet is brutal. The muzzle blast slaps back into his face, overpressure hammering his sinuses. The recoil is sharper than before, but shorter, less rise, more straight-line force. The round punches exactly where the front sight rests. He fires again. Brass ejects violently, clattering against stone. The sound is loud, too loud, but he notes how fast the sights settle back on target. Less swing, less correction. At 20 feet, the grouping opens slightly. He adjusts his stance, leaning forward more aggressively, shoulder locked. Fires again, better. At 30 feet, he misses high once. Files the rear notch deeper by a fraction. Fires again, center mass. By the 10th round, his shoulder aches. By the 15th, his ears ring. He stops at 20. The rifle is controllable. That is enough. The briefing comes at 32 hours under a sky that refuses to fully darken or lighten. Maps are spread over an ammo crate. Fingers trace red grease pencil lines. Objective, clear a 5-cave cluster overlooking a narrow approach route. Previous assaults failed twice. Japanese strength estimated at 20 to 30 infantry, possibly more underground. Projected casualty rate 62% for the lead element. Wilson stands at the back. When point man is requested, he steps forward without speaking. The lieutenant hesitates, eyes flicking to the shortened rifle, the welded brake. "You're sure about that thing?" the officer asks. "Yes, sir." A pause, then a nod. Movement begins at 5 hours, 17 hours. Wilson reaches the coral outcrop first. The rain has returned, fine needling. Visibility is less than 40 feet. Japanese voices drift upslope, close enough to hear breath and footfall. Wilson angles down, rifle tight to his shoulder. The first target appears at 12 feet. A Japanese soldier rises from behind a rock shelf, rifle low. Wilson fires once. The muzzle blast is concussive, a physical shove. The round strikes center chest. The man drops without a sound. Wilson shifts right. Second target at 15 feet, emerging from a slit in the coral wall. Wilson fires twice. First round misses left. Second hits shoulder, spinning the man back into darkness. Machine gun fire erupts from a cave mouth 30 yards uphill. Tracers slice low, ricocheting off stone. Wilson drops flat, crawls 3 feet, rises again. He fires into the cave mouth at 20 feet. The muzzle brake reduces climb just enough. 3 controlled shots. Screams echo briefly, then stop. 26 hours. A grenade arcs from a hidden position. It bounces once, twice. Wilson kicks it back downhill instinctively. The blast knocks him sideways, peppering his face with stone fragments. His ears go dead for several seconds. He keeps moving. At 4:31, Wilson advances to within 8 feet of a narrow entrance. He angles the rifle downward and fires blind, 3 rounds. Silence follows. Another cave, 5 feet to his left. A bayonet lunges out. Wilson fires from the hip, muzzle nearly inside the opening. The concussion is overwhelming. The bayonet drops. By 4:47 hours, resistance has collapsed. No shots return fire. Only the sound of rain and distant naval guns remains. Wilson reloads calmly. By 2 hours, Marines move up behind him, cautious, stunned by the sudden quiet. The cave cluster is secured. 14 confirmed enemy dead, more likely wounded underground. No one cheers. An officer looks at Wilson's rifle, opens his mouth, closes it again. Wilson checks the weapon. The weld has held. The sights are intact. His shoulder throbs. His ears ring continuously. He says nothing. The route is open. Men will live today because the distance was closed. By midday on April 14, 1945, the cleared cave cluster is no longer the story. The silence is. Marines moving through the sector notice something unnatural along the approach route. No incoming fire, no delayed ambush, no sudden muzzle flashes from ankle-high slits. Men advance cautiously, rifles raised, expecting the island to bite back. It does not. Word moves the way it always does in combat, sideways, not through orders, not through briefings, through murmured exchanges behind cover. They went in close. Didn't give 'em room. Short rifle. No names are mentioned at first. Later that afternoon, 2 different squads stop by the coral outcrop where Wilson had staged. One Marine crouches and examines the scuffed rock, counting spent casings by habit. Another asks quietly if the story is true. Wilson does not answer. That night, men begin to tinker. A hacksaw blade appears in one position. A rifle stock is trimmed shorter in another. Bayonets are left behind, not officially discarded, just quietly forgotten. No one files paperwork. No one asks permission. A phrase begins circulating without attribution. Get inside the distance. By the end of the week, the change is visible on paper, even if no one wants to name it. After-action summaries note a measurable reduction in casualties during cave-clearing operations along the southern approaches of Battle of Okinawa. Where rifle squads previously reported casualty rates between 55 and 65%, some engagements now close with losses under 30%. Time to clear objectives shortens. What once took 3 to 4 hours of cautious probing now resolves in 45 to 90 minutes. Flamethrower usage decreases, grenade expenditures drop, riflemen advance closer, faster, decisively. Reports phrase it carefully. Improved close quarters effectiveness. More aggressive maneuver at short range. Enemy resistance neutralized rapidly. No rifle modifications are mentioned by name. No individual Marine is credited. The system absorbs results without examining causes. Officers notice. They do not ask questions. Technically, Wilson's weapon violates regulation. Unauthorized modification of government property. Unsafe alteration of issued equipment. Deviation from established doctrine. On paper, any of these could justify punishment. None come. The lieutenant who approved Wilson's point position never follows up. The gunnery sergeant who warned him away from tinkering pretends not to see the shortened barrels appearing across the platoon. Higher headquarters files reports upward, stripped of specifics, focused on outcomes rather than methods. Wilson is never commended. He is also never reprimanded. The rifle itself disappears quietly a week later, collected, perhaps, by an armorer who recognizes a problem best not documented. Wilson is issued a standard replacement and says nothing about it. His rank remains private first class. The system does not reward deviation. It simply moves on. The Japanese notice the change too. By late April, defenders begin shifting firing points deeper into the cave networks. Shallow entrances go silent. Booby traps multiply, tripwires, knee-high charges, pressure plates hidden under coral dust. Engagements become darker, closer, more dangerous, but something fundamental has already shifted. American infantry no longer pauses at the edge of effective range. They close, they push inside. They refuse to give the caves time to breathe. Japanese doctrine depends on patience. This new approach denies it. The island still exacts its price. Okinawa remains brutal, unforgiving. But the shallow